Hey guys, how you doing? Hope you're doing all right. My work schedule changed, so now I'm getting up at 5:30, an hour that even the gods have abandoned. Now I know there's going to be some bakers out there who go, "Oh, that's not early. I start work at 2 a.m." That's not the morning. You work at nights and sleep during the day until you inevitably snap and shove your boss into the industrial mixing machine. Anyway, I sat down and talked over Discord with Ghostfc3s. He's the lead project for Galac-Tac, Retribution, which is a really cool armor and quest mod. I'll leave the link down below for you to check it out. He was actually requested from Spaz and Spartan on comments on one of my videos. We talked about everything from porting in his old mods to vehicles. So it's a really good interview. He's very knowledgeable, and I'm looking forward to what he does in Starfield. So let's get to it. How's your day so far?
Not too bad. Doing a little bit of home renos, and now I'm just working on some stuff in the creation kit.
I saw that. It's funny. It's all mod authors. There's just always in the background. There's that CK. I feel
Right?
bad. I didn't even pay attention until I started working on a team. If I play a video game that isn't creation kit, like I was like, I should leave Discord and just go on my phone for now. I don't want them to think I'm shirking my work.
Right.
Speaking of, how many people you got on your team for Galac-Tac?
I want to say 8 to 10.
So we have like part-time guys that pop in and out, and then we've got there's like 3 core developers, and then the kind of like, hey, are you free? Let's throw some work your way.
It's a hodgepodge, isn't it, of freelancers and artists and anyone who can throw in a couple hours.
Oh, for sure.
Would you get the idea for because Galac-Tac is airsoft design, right? For airsoft armor?
Yeah, absolutely. So I saw that, and I was like, this is pretty cool, and I would like to have this in Fallout. So
yeah, I got the request to get in contact with you from someone who watches my videos. They said, "Oh yeah, I'd love to hear about his armor because I think it'd fit perfectly in Starfield." I was like, "Well,
Yeah.
that's kind of weird in Fallout," but I checked it out. I'm like, "Yeah, that looks like a Mandalorian fusion of clean textures and everything."
Well, so that was the thing. So we've got a part-time 3D artist. He does absolutely fantastic work, and his first draft of stuff that he developed was like, it was too clean. It was too clean for Fallout. It's like, listen, Fallout's got this cartoony aesthetic that you kind of have to replicate, otherwise it'll look super out of place. Like, even I'm a gear whore. Like, I love gear. So even the stuff like I'll download that's like there's advertised as rips from like Modern Warfare or whatever, and what was the other one? Titanfall, like Titanfall gear.
Yeah.
It looks so out of place because it's too clean. So I'll actually open up the textures and add some noise to it so it looks a little bit more cartoony, and it fits a lot better with like the Fallout environment.
That is really a problem for people who mod on Fallout 4 too. It's the aesthetic that so many mods miss.
Yes.
I bring up Ooh Girls all the time, but stuff like that where it just seems so anime and out of place.
Yes.
It's just, and it's hard. It's hard to nail that aesthetic, and it looks pretty clean in there. And for Starfield, I was like, he doesn't have to change these models at all.
Yeah.
It should be, I mean, cross our fingers for the creation kit too, but the port, I think, would be pretty clean going across.
It would be. There was some like big changes between 4 and 76. I actually did like a walkthrough on how to like port stuff over from Fallout 4 to 76, and the way that they did textures, they added an additional channel to it, and then just the formatting of the NIF model was different. So at the time when I did it, NIF scope and Object Studio hadn't been updated yet, so I had to go back to like this old school donor method from like Fallout 3 and putting it into New Vegas, because there's a different formatting that at the time we didn't really have access to. So it was just kind of like injecting the 3D model into this shell of another 3D model to get it to work properly. So I'm assuming until we have like the proper tools for that, we'll have to do a similar kind of method. But texture formatting is different, so that'll be, literally someone's going to be sitting here updating that texture format while we're watching something going on in the background just to stop from going insane from the boredom.
That's the thing. It was when that CK is going to release or third-party tools are going to be able to port over if they can. Yeah, there's a lot in the air. But what's your YouTube? So I'll put a link down below so people can check that out. There's a lot of modders who are interested in that.
I'll link to the channel.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll post it on the YouTube. I should start with the beginning one. How'd you get into modding anyway? You definitely sound well versed in it.
Yeah, I've been using mods for a very long time, like going back all the way to like Counter-Strike days and
Oh, yeah.
doing skins that way.
That was the last time I was good at first-person shooters.
Right? Not even like CSGO, like the original mod for Half-Life. And then I guess one of the first mods I ever authored was for a game called Freelancer, and it was
The space game?
yeah.
Oh, I love that game.
So I made a couple of ships from Privateer and put them into Freelancer. So then from there was just kind of modding different things here and there, and Fallout 3 I did a couple mods for, and then Fallout New Vegas. I ported stuff from 3 to New Vegas with author permissions for the armors, and then I think the Galac-Tac stuff, the original stuff, was like my first jump into it. Like, I'm not a 3D artist or a 3D modeler by trade, so it's me sitting here in Blender just trying to hammer shapes into armor, and then we got someone who was actually professionally trained in doing 3D models. So yeah, it just gets started with doing minor tweaks and armor overhauls, and then I made, obviously, the Subway Runner was my first like big Fallout 4 mod. For that, I think the original one was like the Cerberus Panzer armor that I'd ported from New Vegas over.
Blender has gotten a lot better these days
Oh
for
yeah.
playing around. I actually just got back into tinkering with it sometimes at work, and yeah, I remember the first time I got into it, there was just no way. I was like, I can't handle these shortcuts or keys or anything. I was like, this is just jumbled mess. And then I picked up, like, oh god, why does this feel so much smoother?
Yeah, I think they just kind of like fell in line, I guess, with some of the industry standards of like where your menus should be and where your interface should look like, because they were really trying to do like their own thing for the longest time, and it felt clunky. And then they're just kind of like, fine, we'll go ahead and just follow what the rest of the industry standard is. So now, if you're used to using Maya or 3D Studios, it's a little bit easier to make that transition over to Blender.
I don't know if you know Foundation's X4
Yes.
space game. I love that game, but they are porting over to Blender because they want to have all their stuff on no one else's engines, because they've had too many times they've been burnt trying to produce, and then they go bankrupt or someone cuts out, or just makes sense, right?
Yeah, I love the X series. I never published anything for that, but I definitely enjoyed making some personal mods for it, and I'm playing around with mods for that.
Yeah, the modding on that is a little more old school.
Yeah.
It doesn't have that nice clean CK mod window where you can get an idea of just about where everything is.
Exactly.
But that's awesome. So you already obviously know something about space games, because X4 has flown under the radar for so many different people.
Great series. It's just a little clunky.
Totally.
And I think that's the biggest thing with it, is it lacks that polish that a lot of people are expecting out of space games. And for the longest time, there's been no following for space games. It wasn't anything that was desired in the video game community.
That was it. That was X4 was. I mean, that was X3 was it.
Exactly.
They had really just the ability to build all these stations and create your kingdom thing you've always wanted. No matter how hard the learning curve was for that, it was the only thing you can actually play and enjoy space.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. So this means I'm hoping this is the correct answer. Are you planning on modding Starfield? And if you do, what do you think will be your first mod?
Well, absolutely. We are looking at doing something for Starfield. Need to wait for community tools and like the official CK, and how much of the actual tool set they give us with the CK, right? Because what we get as a modder is a watered down version of what their development tool is.
Of course.
It's really going to be what features they allow us to have and they give to us as a tool set, and how quickly we get that tool set. And if the community tools like NIF Scope and Object Studio and that kind of stuff gets updated quickly, I could see us putting some armor mods out there fairly quickly. At least doing skins, skin replacers, up until we have the CK in which we can put in our own unique armor sets, then we can at least do some skin replacements.
Definitely looking forward to that, because that NASA is borderline with me. Like that kind of fast-paced looking NASA spacesuits. It's okay, but your gear would be much, much more appealing.
Yeah, we're definitely interested in getting that tactical Mandalorian airsoft kind of look out there as quick as we can.
And judging from the spaceships, I mean, that kind of dirtier, rougher, more tactical look looks like it would fit in Starfield more than the clean white suits that
Yes.
we've been seeing.
Yeah.
I guess they're trying to go for realism to tie it all together, but sometimes Bethesda just holds on to a certain realism for no apparent reason and then discard it for other completely logical reasons.
Yeah. I mean, maybe they'll have like a degradation system where like over time it gets dirty unless you clean it, or you have gear degradation. Bring that back from 3 in New Vegas.
Got a couple Hawkeyes out there that saw that the clothing was getting a little worn as the gameplay was going on. I mean, granted,
Yeah.
that could be just a scene, where you hit the dirt and then something hits you for a bit and then it just
Yeah.
fades back. I think that fits the aesthetic of that cowboy west they got going on in some of those planets. Well, you already touched on I asked the question for the CK2, if that would dictate your interest in modding, but you use a lot of third-party tools.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and do you mostly use third-party tools for 3D animation? You also do Quest, right? So
Yes. So the CK is absolutely super vital for doing quest mods, and for level space design, world space design, and then community tools for the 3D models and textures, right? Like the CK doesn't have any kind of 3D modeler, but you need the Excel sheet that is the creation kit to get your stats in, to get locations, and to do world space and development. So I'm really hopeful that they'll continue on with that and then let us be able to develop quests. It'll be interesting, given that a lot of the worlds are procedurally generated, on how that will be implemented from a modder's perspective. I know there's certain locations that are static, that are hand built, and I'm assuming that modders will have to take a similar approach to quest mods and story mods. If you have like a specific storyline you want to tell, you may have to go about at least building static tile sets for what you want those planetscapes to look like.
Yeah, I was thinking about that from a creating quest perspective, and I have a positive outlook because it's kind of cool that you can tie in a bunch of community quests. Different modders could tie in to each other's by having like conditions met. Like, oh, this
Right.
quest would fit after this one, so it will pop up on whatever planet works for this right after you finish
Right.
this quest. I thought it would be kind of cool with modding to be able to chain them together.
Yeah, I'm hopeful for it, and then that is an easy and intuitive system to use. But we'll have to see once we get our hands on it.
So with the CK2, what would you want to see changed for the next implementation?
A user manual, some proper documentation of what the CK2 is capable of, and where to find those features. Because like so much of what we know about the CK is from just messing around in it and just, hey, what does this button do? Hey, what does this button do? Like there's bare minimum documentation about like what certain interface buttons do, but as far as like playing around with it, making quests, making NPCs, making characters, like a lot of it is like holdovers and carryovers from like Morrowind days. So like, hey, this is how this interface works, and you can sort of see the evolution of it into the Fallout 4 creation kit. But the documentation we have on it is all from the community, right? It's all from different mod authors. It's from like the wiki pages that we've put together, but there's no official user manual that can kind of like guide you along on what does what.
Yeah, the hotkey map would be amazing by itself.
Yeah.
I can't tell you.
So that would be my big want from the CK2 is just a user manual.
Hmm. Yeah, I pitched the idea too of just the hover, where you go over and it goes, oh, here's your hotkey. This is a brief description of what this does. And you can turn that on
exactly.
and off if you don't need it. But holy hell, there's a lot of... It took me forever to realize that I can open another objective window. So
Yeah.
I would always go back and forth when I tried to copy something over and be like, okay, type that in again, go back to this, go back. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I could double this. Great.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. A smoother render window would be one of mine.
Yes. I mean, I use like some of the community creation kit plus tool sets that helps a lot of that, but it's still user made, so it's got some bugs to it, and it does make it a little bit more stable. It doesn't crash as frequently.
As we talked before, the NASA armor in general is kind of meh.
Mhm.
But what have you seen in the direct of how the armor looks, how it moves? What were some positives, and what were some things you think need a boost?
I mean, overall, the fidelity of the armor is pretty good.
Hmm.
That's you've definitely seen improvements of that from Fallout 4 and from 76. So I mean, they're very sharp and clean looking armors. From what I understand, they are moving away from like the piecemeal style of armor that you had in 4 and 76, going back to more traditional like one piece or two piece armor. So you've got like the armor separated by your head and helmet, and then your body armor.
Hmm.
So like Fallout 4, I think was the first one of their games where you could actually, I'm gonna equip the shoulder piece from this armor and the leg piece from this armor and kind of mismatch it, which was fun. Caused a lot of clipping, right? So a lot of
Right.
clothing clipping. So going back to one piece armor system, you can kind of get away from having to worry about, is this going to fit with every piece of armor? And like in our mod, we added a lot of customization, and that was the biggest thing. Is like, okay, we have to kind of make sure that all these pieces work with each other so that there's not massive amount of clipping. And then if there is clipping, is it something we're willing to live with, because we don't want to spend a whole bunch of time going, okay, this looks perfect for sets ABC
Mhm.
and it looks terrible for X, Y, and Z. So how do we do some give and take to make it all acceptable?
I didn't know if I was the only one who's super picky, but like capes of Skyrim or something, I need the
Right.
big thick cape that covers everything because I don't
Yeah.
want to see anything clipping through the cape because it just ruins the whole look for me personally.
So then going back to like the one piece style armor system, we'll get away from that, but we lose modular and customization.
Hmm.
So maybe the modders can implement some kind of minor customization system. Like in the Galac-Tac series, we have like modular pouches, right? And I kind of hijacked the power armor system for that, so you can like swap out different individual pouches. So maybe something like that where you can swap out like the gear that is attached to said pieces of armor.
Or yeah, or maybe they attach to, because if they have all these kind of suit layouts that are all the same, one piece and then the fill out. I think that may be able to allow people to design around attaching to that size uniform, depending if it's a
Exactly.
medium, a heavy, instead of having to worry about, oh, does this work with leather clothing? Does this work
Right.
with, metal? Like just all, especially like the Raider. It's like, what the hell does
Yeah.
that match with? So I see that philosophy of going back to the one piece suit. And I forgot about Fall 3 entirely about the power armor. It's all one
Yeah.
suit.
Yeah. Exactly.
Do you think it would be easier with it than Bethesda just going, okay, one piece and the modders can put stuff on top of it? Or do you think the Fallout 4 would be better because at least everything has its own specific spot already?
I think positives and negatives for each design set. Like, I mean, aesthetically, it looks a little bit better with it all being one piece. But for stats and customization, I like the Fallout 4 system for it.
Mhm.
So it's hard to tell. I mean, there's pros and cons to each one. I personally prefer customization over the perfectly clean aesthetic look.
Mhm.
Um,
It's a tough choice. I'm somewhere
yeah,
in the middle myself. I know this isn't your specialization. This is a bit of a curveball, but people are really interested in vehicles. They cut that crap out,
yeah.
and so people have been wanting to know from mod authors who at least work in the CK. What do you think the challenges would be of implementing vehicles into the game if there's no starting ground for it?
I don't think it would be too difficult. I mean, we have seen some vehicle mods for Fallout 4. They're fairly janky,
Hmm.
but the biggest issue that you'd have with the CK and most of their games in general is like any creature or any object you end up getting on, like the vertibird. It's essentially its own creature. And it has its own animation setups and its own animation framework. To make a vehicle, you'd essentially have to make a new creature that has, you know, rather than legs, it's got wheels, and the wheel animation would be its movement animation and the turning animation for it. So it is very doable. And the problem that we've had previously from implementing stuff like this and new creatures in general is that it requires use of outdated 3D Studio Max, as well as and plugins are included for the 3D Studio Max to be able to export new animations for it. But getting your hands on a copy of that isn't legal. You can't get a working copy of 3D Studio Max from them, period. They refuse to release and allow people to download and access previous versions of it or previous generations of it.
Yeah, I think you have to actually buy their current one, and then you can email request to have a prior date. Something as silly as
Yeah,
that.
it's very complicated, and then you used to be able to get free access to it by being a student and being able to download copies from registering from a university or college email address, and they've eliminated that, and then it's gone to, I think, a pay per month system, because I remember way back when I first started modding, if you wanted to get a copy of 3D Studios Max, it was about the price of a house to get a license to use it. And that really hinders our ability to make new animations. So, I mean, I'd love to see some kind of Blender support and be able to export animations from Blender into the creation kit. And then it would be a little bit easier to make vehicles. So the best example I can give you is I made recently a rideable Deathclaw that you can control and attack with, right?
That's the Rancor, basically. So you got the
Basically,
Mandalorian
yeah,
armor with the Rancor. I see where you're going.
exactly. So it would be essentially that. You'd basically make it so that you would ride a vehicle that is actually a creature. You'd just be able to have those animations of, turning left and right and leaning left and right, to do some scripting for detecting speeds, to play which certain animations at certain speeds. But it wouldn't be terribly difficult once you had those animations. And that animation set is basically the biggest hurdle to mod authors developing any kind of vehicles for Fallout 4.
Right. And I was thinking probably after that, the hardest thing would be having, if you're going into a forest, you need destructible trees or things. Because, I mean, you can't be driving a car around or a Rancor around
Right.
if the thing won't move, or you don't want to
Yeah.
clip right through it. So you would have to go and find all those 3D files and make animations for them to be destroyed.
The creation kit does have a system built in for destructible objects. And basically, like one mesh replaces another mesh as the health of the item degrades. So there's a system in place for that already. Like, you mostly see it with workshop items, where, like, if like a turret gets destroyed, the working turret model gets replaced with a destroyed version of it. So you could do the same kind of thing for foliage and structures as well. There was actually a mod author. What was it called? It's gonna drive me nuts. But anyways, it was a great dungeon crawl mod, and it had destroyable walls and destroyable environment. So as you're going through the dungeon crawl, you could actually shoot through walls and blow them up to create new pathways and that kind of stuff. And you basically use that system to make that mod.
It reminds me of Red Faction. Was it Red Faction?
Yeah, Red Faction, Dark Sun, or something along those lines. It was a really good mod.
And this was, sorry, which mod was this? Was it for Fallout or was it for?
Yeah, it's a Fallout 4 mod,
Oh,
and it's a dungeon crawl.
I should
And
know
basically,
this.
and there's like, it's really long. It took me, like, I think 15 to 20 hours to play through it, and it was absolutely beautiful environment and great NPCs, like new NPCs to fight. They're essentially reskins of, like, the vanilla Fallout 4 NPCs, but they'd have, like, some kind of unique combat mechanic to them.
Cool. I mean, it's amazing the pool of voices you have for some of the characters inside the CK. So you can get away with reusing a lot of those
Oh yeah,
voices and characters.
and if you got the time for it, you can sit down and cut and paste voice lines together from the already voiced lines to make some new lines.
That's right. Now, speaking of lines, what about AI tools? Have you used any of these? Have you played around with any of the AI tools?
I have played around with some of the voice synthesizers. Initially, I thought it was a pretty cool tool, and I was like, oh wait, we can make new voice lines for the Soul Survivor, and then it kind of dawned on me that this is someone's profession. This is their job, is to make those voice lines, as well as the fact that, like, they lose creative control over what their voice is saying, right? So they could essentially get, their voice and likeness could be used in a mod that they are morally against.
Right. Something on Love Lab.
Yeah, exactly. Something along those lines. And from that standpoint, I disagree with using AI to to make new voice lines for for mods. It's nice that they're going to be going back to a non-voiced protagonist, which resolves a lot of that issues. Like in
Yeah.
our Galactic mod, the way we got around it is we would have like another character essentially speaking on behalf of the player if we wanted to have a more advanced conversation rather than the player just responding with yes, no, maybe. So that was our solution to that. Is we just had like a third party basically become the default voice for the Soul Survivor, and like they would be in part of that scene.
That's a hard one to do because on sim settlements, there's a lot of things you want to say and add. And,
Right.
of course, it's tempting to go ahead and have a couple lines made here from 11 Labs that would just really make a difference. But luckily, King Gath, he's pretty solid against it. I feel the same way. We don't want to blur the lines.
Oh, absolutely. And we have used some AI tools for concept art. So stuff that we're putting together for Starfield, we're trying to, and this goes on with one of your questions later on about like paid mods.
Mhm.
So one of the things that we're looking at is kind of getting away from the Mandalorian inspired stuff. Like we still want to keep some of it in there, but we don't want to have like one-to-one replicas that we had before, especially if money starts getting involved with mods, as we're
Exactly.
going to get hit with some lawsuits pretty quickly over that.
Disney's vicious.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. They're vicious when it comes to copyright stuff. So you can get away with it for if there's no money being exchanged. I mean, they used to be brutal about it, and even if no money was being exchanged, they would hit you with a cease and desist. But they've kind of relaxed a little bit on that and been like, all right, our fans are making stuff that is for our fans, so we'll let it slide as long as they're not making money off of it.
Right.
So as soon as you start getting money involved, we're like, maybe we need to come up with some of our own designs. So we've been using some AI tools to come up with concept arts that we can turn into 3D models.
I think that's the right way to go about it, especially with all these great tools where you can kind of sketch out storylines and you can kind of get some new ideas from. If we create a mod where we have people talking, maybe a good way to get that mod out there and get some really good voice actors is go, here's my mod. These are the voices I used as filler. They sound about where I want them. I'm looking for voice actors who are like this.
Yeah.
That's my thinking of it being in the gray area, but not too bad.
Absolutely. And then like you use like the speech detect for like samples or for minor roles if you really have to, but they're unique. They're not a copy of someone else's voice. I don't know how much you've played into our mod, but that is something we struggled with initially when we first started is audio quality, finding participants that wanted to get involved, right? When you start a new project, nobody knows who you are, and you go, hey, I want to make, this entire faction that'll allow you to play the main story and finish it with a completely unique ending. And they go, yeah, sure, great. That sounds like something that's totally doable. And then we did it, and then everyone hops on board like, yeah, okay, I want to work on this project now. I'm like, well, it's mostly done.
It's hard. Yeah. Would you go on CCC?
Yeah, a couple other Discord pages that had like a channel for looking for voice actors and that kind of stuff. And we got some really good talent. And then I voiced the main quest giver just from a creation kit side and making quests. It was so much easier for me to just voice the lines as I'm making the quest rather than shelving it for 6 months and waiting to get voice lines back from
Whoever.
from a voice actor, like, and then having to go back and be like, okay, where was this line supposed to go?
That's exactly why I've been learning and trying to get my modding chops up, is because I want to do my own character for Starfield.
Right.
And that's the reason. I want to be able to do it myself, sit there, record the lines as many times as I said. I can say it 30,000 times if I wanted to, just to get it how I want it. Heather had the same way.
Yes.
It's so nice to be able to have that freedom. But on the same token, you get someone who does voice like Jake or the other really good voice actors who are not the developers, and if they're good at that voice, there's no replacing them.
No, it's very true. And one of our characters, Vlad, he speaks it's like a Slavic language, and he is a fantastic voice actor, and he did probably about 500 lines for us. And then he's like, okay, guys, I'm out. I've got real world obligations. And I'm like, no, but we want to do more with this character, and now we can't because he's done with it. So it would mean recasting him and finding another Slavic speaker that sounds similar to him to replace him, and that's one of the disadvantages of outsourcing to people who aren't in your project, like directly in your project team, is that and even people that are in your team, they can walk away from your project and say that, you know, I got real world obligations that I have to meet, and I can't focus on this anymore, and you kind of get stuck. So
Even professionals, you know, it's just like,
oh yeah,
where are they going, or they're not doing that kind of stuff anymore. Yeah, it's a hard field all around. That is a point for AI, but at the
yeah,
same token, you got yourself kind of this character who has a great voice, did really well, and it really made that part of the game. Now it's kind of like, do I flex him out? Something happened. Now I have to kind of write in this thing, or as you said, recast and hope I can get someone that can match that.
right.
What is your favorite sci-fi movie or series for the style of armor or clothing you want to see or add to Starfield?
Two separate questions. That sci-fi setting and shows. I am a big fan of Firefly,
Oh yeah.
and like I love that, you know, cowboys in space western kind of vibe. I really like that. It'd be interesting to see a little bit of that get brought into Starfield as well, and like, you know, going out to the fringe planets that are going to be less developed. So I mean, that kind of aesthetic I always liked.
What were the name of the raiders that were on the outskirts in Firefly that were just like terrifying? They're like,
That were just cannibals.
yeah,
The Reavers.
the Reavers.
Yes.
Some Reaver action out there.
And then I guess like gear wise, I like tactical gear, right? A couple of our guys are ex-military, so we all have like this love of military gear. One of the aesthetics that I've really liked from like other studios is like Titanfall and Halo, just that kind of like big beefy militarized space gear.
Space Marines.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean that we definitely want to bring that kind of stuff into Starfield. So assuming the tools are there for it, we're going to do it.
Yeah, I think this is a case for the New Vegas Ranger armor. I think that can fit in
Yes.
this universe. That's like really one of my favorites because it is that cowboy Firefly-esque mixed in with like the Space Marine plate.
Absolutely.
So that's my one request from you and your team.
It's an homage to the Ranger outfit.
Yeah, I think that would have a really good place in here.
Let's hope we get good cloth physics this time around.
You know, you bring that up. I saw a couple places where there was like the tubes on the outside of his thing kind of moving with him,
Yeah.
and there was some flexing in it. So I hope we get the tools within the CK that will help us kind of port those over. I know we're going to have to do it in a third-party program, but
Yeah.
I do wonder how they're going to do like the planets and the generation of the random environments. How will we be able to manipulate that in the CK? I've been racking that in my head, and I have no good answer for that one.
So from the way they explained it and what I can kind of glean from it based off of like the way the Fallout 4 random encounter systems work is like when the game starts up, it randomizes what your galaxy looks like and procedurally generates your systems, right? And then the planets that are in those systems have a type. So you'll get like an outside space model, and then once you land and you go into that loading screen for the land, it'll then procedurally generate a tile set that you're going to be landing on, so what your terrain will look like. And then based on that tile set, it'll have 20 different types of structures or encounters that you can have on that tile set. So in Fallout 4, when you're walking along, there are certain parts of the game that are set up for random encounters. So once the player hits that trigger box, it'll randomize from a list of different encounters that can appear in front of the player just outside of like the player's line of sight or just outside of the player's vision line, and drop them down. So this is like mutants fighting raiders, or Brotherhood of Steel guys fighting raiders or gunners, or you know, you coming across a fridge that's buried in the ground. So those are all part of that list. So I'd assume you'd have a similar kind of list for that tile square. You know, 00185 has a list of different encounters that you can experience based on that, you know, that on that tile square, based on what type of planet it is, whether there's creatures on it, whether it's for mining purposes, whether you can settle it, right? So that's what I would assume based off of like how the random encounter systems worked in Fallout 4. Like that's what I would do if I was designing a system like that. I would use that same system.
That makes sense to me. And the only issue I'm wondering is, so you were talking about the little planet, right? Our little avatar planet before we go onto the main planet. I'm wondering, like, what system in the CK we'll have where we're able to make those little avatars and attach it. You know what I mean? Like making that own planet random. I wonder what CK thing they have in there that would allow us to do that.
Yeah, I mean, that's gonna have to be, I would assume, a new system that they built from the ground up, or a randomization of like material swaps and randomization of like 80 different planet models that they would have, right?
I remember when you do the NPCs and you're in that little character window. It's like, God,
Yeah.
this is a nightmare. Like,
Yes, I would assume it's very similar to that nightmare.
I was like, please. I hope it like I just like, okay, here's a couple buttons, random generate like a dice roll. Oh, that looks
Yeah.
nice. I know it's not, but that's the part of me. I was like, God, I hope it's as far away from that NPC window. I don't know how many times I've just used the Abbott's frame because it's the first NPC there.
Right. There's actually a really nice third-party tool. Like, you can basically, what I do is, if I want to make a really detailed NPC, is I'll make them in the creation or in Fallout 4 using like the startup sequence. Make a save game, and you can actually rip the face off of that NPC and then inject it into your mod.
Well, do you know the name of that?
Face Ripper.
Face Ripper. Wow.
Yeah.
There's a name.
Yeah.
Don't complicate it.
Nope. It does what it says on the box.
I want to take your face and put it on mine. All right.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll make a mod for that. You already talked about it, but the paid mods. So you guys already talked about it in your community. What are your thoughts on it in general?
Man, that's a whole lot of mixed bags. Like, modding for me and the majority of our team, it's a hobby. It's something we enjoy doing in our spare time. Now, that being said, I've probably spent more than 1,000 hours in the creation kit making mods.
I bet.
So if I got some money from that, I would like that.
Right.
But at the same time, am I then going to be making mods based on how much money I think I could make from it? Would it reflect my choice of developing mods? If I'm like, ooh, probably only like 10% of the population that plays, Starfield is going to like this mod, maybe I should focus my energy on something else that would generate more money. I'm sure there's going to be Lever Lab mods for it as well. So
yeah, 11 labs and Lever Labs put together, as we already said, is going to lead down a dark road.
Right. So are those going to be paid mods as well? Because I could see people making a lot of money off of that. It's kind of one of those things where it's like, I like the idea of having like some kind of compensation for it, but at the same time, I don't want it to become the main focus of why we're making mods, because we're not making mods to make them money, right? We're making mods because we want to add something or change an element of the game, right?
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that's always been really nice about, their suite of video games, is you can take them and make them your own and make them what you want to experience from a video game, right? Like, my personal enjoyment play setup is a very hardcore survival setup game, right? Like, that's how I play Fallout, is I'm scrounging for resources and
some Frost.
Yeah, exactly. I love Frost. Very, very similar to that. So are very harsh mechanics, but with the main storyline is still integrated. So there's quest lines and that kind of stuff. But that's my go-to when I'm actually going to play Fallout and not testing out mods, right? Is that going to generate me a lot of money if I sit there and make that mod suite that does that? Or should I just stick to making skimpy armor? Is that going to make me more money, right? So I don't want to think about making mods for that. And then you've got all the other issues that come with that, especially if you're a part of a big team. Well, who gets what percentage? Whose bank account does that money go into?
That's more the scary one for me.
What happens when your team is not, like, I'm Canadian. I've got another Canadian on my development team, but the rest of my team is American. So now what happens when that money has to cross borders, right? Who gets taxed on that? And is it going to be considered an income source for income tax purposes? So there's all this other headache that comes along with it, where I much more prefer the, hey, if you like our mod, throw us a couple bucks so that the next mod we make, we can hire a better voice actor or a professional voice actor, or we can purchase a unique asset or something off of CG Trader, or pay someone that is going to make us a unique asset that we can implement, right? I mean, I work full time. I don't need you to pay my mortgage. But I know there are people that.
But please go ahead if you want to.
I know, but I know there are people that are on the Nexus that have the donation point system, and that is a revenue stream for them, right? constantly pumping out mods to make that revenue stream. And for me, it's not, and that's not what I'm interested in. Like, that's not what I want to be doing with my free time. I want to be making mods that I enjoy playing and then sharing them with the community, and hopefully they enjoy them as well.
Right. I think YouTube's a good kind of microcosm to see how from nothing of no monetary to kind of
Yeah.
when you get clicks and subscribers or when you get, sponsors. I kind of see modding going in that same realm for better or for worse. But I think something like a subscriber system or something like that where people can get credit and there is some benefit, or the Nexus version of that. But it made me think, going down that line, at some point there's going to be mods where people mod in advertisements.
Yeah, I can see that.
Just like they're doing now. You watch Juicehead or any of those guys. I mean, good on them. Get paid, get your money. But I'm just waiting for that one hit where the NPC is like, hey, we really got to go to the tourist system. I hear they have some of the best Coca-Cola I've ever had in my life, and new flavors coming out.
Yeah, I could definitely see that.
It's a slippery road, but I would like to see modders get compensated for what they do, because honestly, they put so much hours and work and stress into it. I help out the SS2 team, but there's no way in hell I would say that I get any financial support. Give it to King Gath and the main guys who are really, struggling and pushing it out hard and keeping everything together. I put in my dialogue where I can help and you can code those characters in, but it is nowhere the effort that these guys put in, thousands of hours plus.
Putting voice lines into the CK is one of the most monotonous things you could ever do.
Oh, right now I'm doing background dialogue for, I can't say to it, but like they're just talking to each other. So you walk into a room and the doctor is talking to so-and-so.
Yeah.
And they all have, scenes. They talk amongst each other. And I put all the scenes in one grouping and I screwed that up. So I had to do it over. And we're talking about two characters. We have, 200 to 500 lines for the set of just one character and all the different people that come into the room that he talks to.
Yeah.
And holy God, I zone out so hard. And I'm like, I know I'm missing a couple buttons somewhere, some sort of thing I didn't tick. This is going to be a bug report somewhere down the line.
Yeah.
A lot of respect to those guys who are putting all those dialogue, all the conditioning them right. And it is not a glamorous aspect of the CK.
Oh, and like, you condition one of those lines wrong and it's attached to like giving out the next quest, and like you're getting bug reports for months on it. I'm like, it's just one condition. Just
ignore it. So what, he's talking about something that hasn't happened yet. It's fine.
It's fine.
He's had a stroke. Okay, he's just can't stop talking right. Leave him alone. But final question. This was a perfect one. What if you can have day one? We got about a month till this drops. What would be your one playable mod you want right away, or utility mod?
For third-party software support, either Outfit Studios or Xedit, right? If we could get some of those like as quickly as possible updated, that would allow us to start doing reskins, implementing new armor sets, and that you could then put inside of like a store or a vendor list, right? Either one of those tool sets as quickly as possible would be fantastic.
Well, the good news on the Outfit Studios, he's one of the first people I've talked to, and he is definitely going to port that over as soon as it drops.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so I got good news for you on that one. Now, with something more fun, and not about modding, something you want to see enjoying and yourself.
For Starfield?
Yeah, be greedy. Something you want. Just do. Who cares about who's working and putting in dialogue lines? Just be a greedy consumer.
An out of the box involved bounty hunting system. Not just go to spot X on planet X and kill NPC Y. Like, I want an actual system of like, hey, this criminal is operating in these 4 systems on these 4 planets, and you're not given a map marker. You're not given a direction of where they are. You just have to kind of go there for yourself and happen across them, right? Going back to the X series of games like X3, they had a modder came out with a really good bounty hunting system where it was essentially that you're told, hey, there's this person here who's got a bounty on him. He operates in these 4 systems. Go and find them, and you'd literally have to fly out to those locations and scan random passing ships and see if you could find your target. I would love to have an involved bounty hunting system like that.
So kind of the Star Citizen, their imagined way of doing bounty hunting, where
Yeah.
you collect them, you cryo freeze them, you transport them, they can try to escape. You got to go search for the clues to get these people. Yeah,
Exactly.
I agree. Because I'm tired of that vanilla, like, okay, here it is, here's the marker, and the money isn't great anyway, so take it or leave it if you want to do it. I was going to say vehicles, but that's going to take a while. I already know that in general, and I'm not sure how well it's going to fit. So I was thinking like a gliding pack, like for your jetpack, to have a glider just to give you some sense of flight and something that would work well in that environment.
Like a speeder bike where it's hovering, so you don't have to worry about wheels.
Yeah, well, we just saw that video of this Star Wars game on that speeder.
Yeah.
That sure looked good. I was like, oh, that is. They're all coming out right now. I'm going to get a space overload.
That's work on stuff is definitely going to come to a complete stop when I get my hands on. It would be pretty much putting a couple 100 hours into that as soon as it comes out.
Same on the Sim Settlements. King Gath has already said he's not going to disturb us for a couple months. I won't hold him to it. There's going to be bugs, but it's still it's a nice sentiment.
It's a nice sentiment.
I appreciate you taking this time over, man. That's a good conversation.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So any plugs? Anything in the works? Anything you want out there?
So I'm working on a spooky mod. Hopefully for Halloween time, it'll be ready.
Oh.
And basically add some supernatural elements into Fallout 4. I realize it is going to be, a month after Starfield comes out. So
I know poor mod authors right now.
I know I may not get a whole lot of love right off the bat, but essentially it's like a random encounter system where at nighttime you get basically tracked down by some supernatural creatures, and you have to fight them off or run from them because some of them aren't killable. You can just only run from them. It's very script focused. Scripting is something that I've had to learn for my Galac-Tac mods, and I've really taken to it. So I'm getting to play around with some very fun and unique functions and features in scripting. So
for Papyrus, you're getting into it, huh?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It scares me.
It is. It's a lot, and it's a lot of trial and error too. Be like, hey, this compiles, but it doesn't do anything in game, and then you look at the wiki page for it and be like, oh, this is no longer supported, and it was a holdover from Skyrim CK, but it doesn't actually do anything anymore. There's a lot of that going on for this mod, and I've purchased some 3D assets from different sites that I've rigged to the skeletons that we get in Fallout 4. So we've got some unique new monsters, unique gameplay elements like vampires. You can end up becoming a vampire, which has been done before in Fallout 4, but it's something I wanted to include with this one. And then a werewolf. You can become a werewolf.
Oh.
And I know that was something that was looked at and people tried to do very early on in Fallout 4 and just wasn't working out. So I found a nice little workaround for that. So now you can actually transform into a werewolf.
Oh, this sounds good. You should get in contact with Red Ot over at Frost. You would love this.
So yeah, that's a lot of it is inspired by the Grim mod, which I really liked. But for whatever reason, it's just as you play it and the longer you play it becomes more unstable.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very, very script heavy. And I think that's why it becomes unstable and just kind of like slows down Fallout 4.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of taking some inspiration from like the night beasts that it has from that and kind of making a more streamlined and slimmed down system similar to that. So you're out at nighttime walking around and a boss creature will spawn behind you or just outside of the player's view, and you have to fight it. There are going to be some minor quest elements to it, but it's really going to be more just NPCs spawning that you have to fight.
That's super cool. Yeah, look forward to that. I'll definitely post it up when you get it out there. So send me a link when you press it on Nexus.
Sure. And then I did find that other mod I was talking about earlier with the semi-destructible environments called
Oh, what was the name?
Chaotic Stun.
Chaotic Stun. Okay.
Sun.
Oh, Sun.
It's a great dungeon crawl. Basically, you come in the entrance and then you basically go all the way through probably like 30 different levels and then come out on the other side. But it's got some really unique mechanics to it, really unique environments, like absolutely stunning environments that this author created. I recommend giving it at least a playthrough.
Awesome. It sounds like someone I got to get in contact with.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again, sir, and talk to you in the future, all right? I wanted to talk to you after Starfield releases, and we're all wowed by it.
Exactly. Look forward to it.
Hey, thank you guys so much for sticking to the end. It means a lot. Now, I know it doesn't seem like it takes a lot to edit this kind of video, but it's over about 15, 20 minutes I cut out, and 2,000 cuts, I think, of basically all my ums, ands, and breaths, and what was I talking about? You get the point. So if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up if this is the type of content you're into, and hopefully I'll be getting into lore later on. Go ahead and subscribe. I know I appreciate it. And I always forget, but I have my Discord down below. Come on, join us. We love to talk about Starfield. And I think the last thing we were just talking about was the JFK assassination. Look, we try to stay away from it, but, sometimes you go down that rabbit hole. Anyway, stay safe and mod reckless. See you guys next time.